We ask that you would speak to our spirits, mind, body, and soul. We thank you that your word is pure. We thank you that your word is everlasting and that your love is pure also. We ask that you would speak to us and give us something to last us throughout the week that we can build on. And in your holy and righteous Son, Jesus' name I pray. Amen. My opening verse is out of Numbers chapter 20. I'm going to start at verse 12. Got it? All right. Numbers chapter 20, verse 12. But the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, because you did not trust in me enough to honor me as holy in the sight of the Israelites, you will not bring this community into the land that I give them. So this afternoon we're going to talk about the chaos or complaints. So the reason why Moses and Aaron got themselves in trouble was because people was complaining. People kept complaining, and it caused them to make a decision to get them in trouble. Now, they did what God told them to do, but they didn't follow the exact instructions. And sometimes whenever you may be dealing with complaints or something like that, when people keep complaining long enough, it could cause chaos. You know, you might be able to ignore it the first couple of times, but if enough people keep doing it over and over again, sooner or later you're going to be like, just leave me alone before I burn the building down. So complaints can cause chaos, and we're going to see in this chapter right here, in this short testimony of how Moses and Aaron, listening to the people, had let the chaos get to them, and it ultimately caused them not to get into the land that God promised to them. So go back up, I'm going to read verse 1 and 2. We're still in chapter 20. It says, in the first month, the whole Israelite community arrived at the desert of Zin, and they stayed at Kadesh. There, Miriam died and was buried. Now there was no water for the community, and the people gathered in opposition to Moses and Aaron. So here they is out there in the desert, and they gathered to complain. Well, to me it seemed like a lot of Christians are like how they was. We tend to get to a point to where you can forget everything that God did for you, and it'll make you kind of a brat. You start complaining, spoiled is what I want to say. So it's easy to forget that God brought them out of slavery. You know, whenever they was in slavery, they was enslaved, they was getting whooped, they was limited. The man, so-called, had his foot on their neck. And so in the midst of this freedom, because they didn't have something that they wanted right away, it caused them to complain. And complain and make chaos. So how many of us been in a situation that God just made a major move in our life or got us out of a big, terrible situation, and something small come up that we want, that we know God can provide, and we end up complaining about it anyway. So what I mean is, somebody might have got over cancer, somebody might have was supposed to die and still living, and you want a car and God don't give it to you. And then you get mad and start complaining. But you forget that God just brought you from a death sentence that a doctor just gave you. It's easy to get caught up in something that you feel like you want, even though you know God can provide it. So we see right here, because the people didn't have something as small as water, they started to complain. Now, they knew that God could do anything. They was there whenever God caused the plagues. They was there whenever all the firstborns died. They was there whenever the water was parted. And here they sitting complaining like God can't get them water after God literally parted the Red Sea and closed it back so they couldn't go back. In verse 3 it says, they quarreled with Moses and said, if only we had died when our brothers fell dead before the Lord. So now they're complaining so bad to where they feel like they want to die. Now keep in mind, remember everything God just done. Because remember we talked about the chaos of complaints, because complaints called chaos. Now think about everything God just brought them through. And they're going to say they want to die over water. Think about being a slave, being free, The way you got freed, and you complaining because you can't have a sip of water. What's it coming to? Well, we so spoiled as Christians that little small stuff we start complaining about, and we forget about the big stuff God did. This is a problem we see all the time with people. People complain about stuff that they don't get all the time, but they forget about the stuff that God brought them through every single time. This is why you see a lot of people trying to step away from the faith, because they feel like God not with them, or God didn't give me this, or God didn't give me that. I look at it like this with my parents, because people do walk away from the faith because of their parents transitioning. People do walk away from the faith because of their parents transitioning. So I would look at it like this. I know my parents gonna live a long time. I know Mama and Papa are gonna live a long time. But if they had it that they was to leave now, because they like parents to me too. So if they had it that they was to leave now, I wouldn't look at it as, man, God not fair, God not right. I would celebrate the fact that God gave me such and such years with them, and now they transitioning on. The same thing with my parents. God gave me 35 years with my parents. Even if they was to fall sick on their sick bed, you know what? It don't look good right now, but God, thank you for the time that you gave me with them and the stuff that you instilled in them to instill in me to help other people. Yeah. We don't look at stuff like that. We so busy complaining about what we think God should give us. But, and you also see how people complain about whenever they pray. Instead of going to God with a grocery list and what we want, how about you just start praying and just try this simple prayer and just say, God, what's your will? How many of us sit here really and ask God, what do you want? How many of us pray and say, God, what's your will? Because whenever Jesus was in the garden, he said how he felt. He said, Lord, if it be your will, take this away from me. Take this cup from me. I can't handle this. But at the end of the day, not my will, but your will be done. So how many of us actually lay on our face in front of God and say, God, what's your will? And just sit there and listen. So instead of asking for stuff all the time, or asking God for this and that, because we feel like we need it, every now and then, just stop and say, God, what's your will? And see what he tell you. Asking God his will can stop you from complaining, because it tells us, seek first the kingdom and everything else gonna come. So people start to complain because they're trying to seek everything else first instead of the kingdom. And people will say, well, I've been trying to find God my whole life. Obviously you haven't, because it says seek and ye shall find, but nobody's seeking it wholeheartedly. People just won't come to church, and they won't come to church and expect something miraculous to happen, like signs and wonders, and God part the clouds and then they come down. It don't work like that all the time. You have to really seek God. The way you're supposed to seek God is how you seek everything else. The same way you seek for something to watch on TV, that's how you're supposed to seek God. Same way you seek a job, is how you seek God. Same way you try to seek something to eat, is how you want God. The same way the women seek the right grease and conditioner to put up in their head, is the same way we're supposed to seek God. You keep looking and you keep looking until you find him. Because sooner or later, if you keep knocking on that door, per se, if you keep knocking on that door, God will reveal himself. All right? So we're still talking about the chaos of complaints. So I'm at verse 5. Why did they said, so at this point they said that they wanted to die. No, I'm at part 4, I'm sorry. Verse 4. Why did you bring the lost community into the wilderness that we and our livestock should die? So not only is they confessing that they're going to die, they saying that all their cows and their livestock going to die too. So once again, here we is. God that took you out of slavery. While you was in slavery, you wasn't hungry. You ate 3 square meals a day. He kept y'all from dying, but even though y'all was in bondage, y'all was still his special children. And the only reason why y'all was in bondage in the first place is because y'all got beside yourself. So he freed you, fed you, parted the Red Sea, and now all you want is some water, and you talking about why not leave us there in slavery to die, and now you thinking God gonna let all your cattle die. Now if God did all this for you, why would he bring you all this way just to let you down now? That's another problem we got. people feel like God bring them to a certain point and he let them down. If you read anybody who follow Christ, whenever you pass a test, what you get for passing? Another test. So with great power do come great responsibility. So don't get mad because whenever something come up in your life and you feel like you get past it, God lets something else come. Because we know that the enemy is standing in front of the throne and trying to attack us. And God said, have you considered my servant? So don't consider it that God done left you hanging. Consider it, be happy, no matter what happens, because God not going to leave you hanging. But you got to stop complaining. As a whole, we have to stop complaining. All right? In verse, what verse I was on, 4? All right, verse 5. Why did you bring us up out of Egypt to this terrible place? It has no grains or figs or grapevines or pomegranates, and there is no water to drink. So once again, they talking about all the stuff that they don't have. Now, this remind me of a saying I heard. People want God to build houses. Now, he can. But why would God build houses when we got all these trees out here? Because houses are made of wood, right? So why not cut down the trees and make the houses yourself? God gave you everything you need to make it. So they're out here up in the desert. Why not plant your own plants? Why not plant your own food? Why not do it yourself? People think God gonna do everything for them. God got the power to do it, but he want us to take the steps ourselves. And it even said the word will be a light unto your feet. So he'll show you the way. So God give you the trees, but you got to build your own house. We want God to do everything for us. We want God to show us the vision, have the wood piled up for us, nail it up yourself. That's not how it works. When you're working with God, you're going to have to get your hands dirty. You're going to have to work a little bit. And that's what people don't want to do. And you can see this in people's prayer life. You ever seen people that can only pray? They tell you that they can't pray long, which nothing is wrong with that. It's not about how long you pray, it's what you say. But at some point up in your life, in your prayer closet, you're going to have times where you pray for 30 minutes to an hour, and it get to the point to where time go by so quick, whenever you step out of what you're doing, you didn't even know that it took that long. Because when you're in the spirit, time moves different, right? Verse 6, Moses and Aaron went from the assembly to the entrance to the tent meeting and fell face down, and the glory of the Lord appeared to them. The Lord said to Moses, take the staff, and you and your brother Aaron gather the assembly together, speak to the rock before their eyes, and it will pour out its water. You will bring water out of the rock for the community, so they and their livestock could drink. So God gave them specific instructions, but they did the right thing. They went and laid on their face in front of God. They asked God what to do. Now, how many of us do this? Whenever people complaining and you up in a position where you got to make choices, how many of us go to God first? Some of us get aggravated first. We react out of being aggravated, out of being mad. We just tell them, why don't y'all shut up so I can think about what I'm doing? But what Moses and Aaron did, they were laid on their face in front of God. That's the same recipe we got to use. Whenever people complaining and there's a lot of chaos, the best thing that you could do is lay on your face in front of God. Seek what he tells you. So what they did was laid on their face in front of God. And God told them what to do. He had to speak to the rock. And God gave them clear instructions. Speak to the rock, speak to the rock. So in verse 9 it says, so Moses took the staff from the Lord's presence, just as he commanded him. He and Aaron gathered the assembly together in front of the rock. And Moses said to them, listen, you rebels, must we bring you water out of this rock? And then Moses raised his arm and struck the rock twice with his staff. Water gushed out, and the community and their livestock drank. So just get us back to the point to where we started. He called the people rebels. Obviously, he was aggravated. But they tell you that to win a fight, you can't fight out of anger. You got to use your mind. You got to think. You got to stay calm. You got to remember your training. So had Moses not acted out of being aggravated, Moses would have spoke to the rock instead of hitting it. So Moses tapped the rock whenever God told him to speak to it. Now, how many of us have had the same situation where God told us to do something and we did it our way, and God punished us for it? But we felt like God was mean because it still worked. But he told you a certain way to do it. Like if he tell you to go and talk to somebody, he tell you to be loving with it. He didn't tell you to walk straight up to them and tell them that they're going to hell. He don't tell us to do that sometimes. Sometimes he tell us to go to people up in a loving way. Look, what you doing is wrong. The wages of sin is death. If you keep this up, you will go to hell. But just walking up to people like we got it all together, talking about you going straight to hell, fire and brimstone, ain't what God want us to do sometimes. So, a quick example, I remember on one job I had, for some reason it was this lady who couldn't stand me. I was delivering parts, and so in the morning, I'd go sit up in the truck because we had Sprinter vans, and I'd be reading the little Bible verse on my phone because I didn't want to work there. I was already aggravated. So I said, at least I could read in the morning, get a little time in. So I started reading on my phone or whatever, and she would text our supervisor and tell him I was sleeping. So I noticed every morning the supervisor would send somebody to my truck there, walk up and look through the windshield and see me with the light on my phone, and I wave at them. And so everybody that come back and tell them that I wasn't sleeping. So sooner or later, the word got back to me who it was. And the first thing that came to my mind was let her have it, because nobody liked them and she was messy. But when I walked up to her, my last day of work, the only thing I could do was hug her and say, God bless you. And I still, till this day, I feel like I went out the punk way. I feel like I was soft because I should have told her, and everybody expected me to do it. But God had a hold on me, and he had me handle it a certain way. Now, with that situation, could I have complained? Yes, I could have. Because every morning, she'll come out and look, and I'm looking at her while she's doing it because I caught on. She'll text the supervisor, and I'm sitting here just reading the Bible, and she'll send somebody out every time. I could have handled it from an aggravating standpoint, but I had to submit to what God wanted me to do. So we got to learn that just because something get on our nerves, just because we outnumbered, don't mean that we got the right to act from an angry standpoint, from an aggravated standpoint. God gonna have us to handle every situation a certain way. Now, with family, I know that's the hardest thing to do, because on your job or in the world, you can kind of stay from around people, but your family, you stuck with them. And the messed up part is you can't pick who you kin to. You know what I'm saying? If God had gave us a choice, I'm pretty sure there's a couple of them in there we would have skipped past. God, you gotta keep that line going. I don't want them. Case in point, I got a cousin right now. We grew up together. He a little older than me. And me and his little brother type. But me and his little brother have been in conversations with the rest of the family or get together where he done went to jail for stealing something. And nobody claimed him. And me and my cousin like, well, yeah, he came to us. Now, I could have got aggravated and tried to fight everybody. But with God being with me now, for some reason, he done got me a little more calm and stuff don't bother me no more. But I could have came from a place of aggravation and found fault with everybody else. And then later on, the same people who was talking about him got caught up in stuff they was doing. We had one cousin who was stealing golf carts and selling them. He went to jail. Another cousin that talked about him stealing. He got fired off his job and he went to jail. So God got his own way of handling things. So we need to keep in our mind that we don't need to handle nothing from aggravation. The first time you deal with something, or the first time you deal with chaos or any kind of complaint, you take it to God. Even if you got to walk off and take yourself a break, or even if people call you soft or say that you ain't a man, don't worry about it. God gonna handle it. Because I seen that even with my daddy. Y'all heard me tell this before, but him and his brothers was getting into it real bad, and I wonder why he'll let them walk around and talk about him in the street. And he was never mad about it. He'll just say, man, God gonna handle it. And later on, he told me, one by one, they all called him back crying, apologizing, and now everybody a big happy family. But had he retaliated from a place of him being aggravated, God couldn't be glorified. So make sure, whatever you do, whenever you're dealing with chaos, that you're not retaliating from a place of being angry. You're not letting yourself be put up in a place where your blood pressure up. And that's another thing too. A lot of us go to the doctor and your blood pressure sky high. It ain't the doctor. It's because you let them people get on your nerves wherever you at. And people don't know that the slightest thing can spike your blood pressure. Like, we got this dude who work with us. He like in his 50s. He could jog 5 miles like it ain't nothing. He'll work out nothing. Like, he don't eat fried food or nothing. But his blood pressure high. So one day we was all sitting down talking, and he, man, I don't know what's going on, man. I've been working out and jogging. I stopped drinking, and my blood pressure high. I don't know why. I said, you and your wife be getting into it? Me and her have been at each other's throat lately. There you go. You ain't got no peace in your house. Y'all arguing back and forth. Your blood pressure gonna be high. If you, it don't matter how much you work out or how much you try to fix it. You can't be arguing with your wife every day and expect everything to be okay. A city divided amongst itself gonna fall. That's chaos. So what y'all do is continue to be in front of God and don't let complaints bother y'all.